Every day, all day. Every day, all day. I tell myself, well, this is what I'm going to do tonight when I get home. And then almost invariably, I watch some YouTube videos. And then instead of doing what I was going to do, something comes to mind, and I have to speak. Some of the things that like I love the most are like the hardest to deal with. And lately, both because of what's happening in the world and also what I've come to over the last year, I don't want to dig into this. And I'm speaking to this narrative that I've put words to over the last year, but so much more of it is in my mind. So I'm speaking to this narrative that is in my mind, but it's in my mind because it exists throughout history. And like, because I was talking yesterday about Abraham, and of course the connection with Abraham Lincoln. And that's the whole deal with like, names. Like, you just can't get away from it. Abraham of the Bible. Because people talk about the historicity of Jesus a lot. People don't then tend too much to bring up the historicity. If Abraham was a real dude, right? People don't bring that up a lot. The only people who bring it up is like, yeah, he was the dude. And then Abraham Lincoln, right? My name's Jeff. And love him or hate him, real or fake, either one, the effect that those two Abrahams have had on the world. Love him or hate him, good or bad. Right? Certainly on the Western world, the Middle Eastern world, etc. It's huge. And I was just watching that movie, Lincoln, with I think it's Daniel Day-Lewis, isn't it? And I've been listening to an audiobook. I forget the author. It's on Audible. It's a 3 parts, 30 something hours, I think, thereabouts. It's a cultural biography, not entirely linear. Lots of Emerson. But yeah, the story of Lincoln and his wife, like essentially how dysfunctional they were. That's what happens where heaven and hell touch. It's this fucking whirlwind. Not only heaven and hell, but heaven, hell, and us and our free will. It's a whirlwind, constantly trying to gain control. And so often in history, right, history is dealt with as history. Psychology is dealt with as psychology. Religion is dealt with as religion. Politics is dealt with as politics. The arts are dealt with as the arts. Acting is dealt with as acting. Economics is dealt with as economics. But it's the whole fucking bag all the time. Imagine the real horribleness of being God. Hearing everything. Whether or not you believe in God. Just as an exercise. You hear everything, you see everything. You could answer any prayer, but there's the butterfly effect. People talk about all these multiverses, infinite multiverses. The infinite multiverses are all right here. When a decision happens, when an event happens, and things split into multiverses. Those multiverses, you make a decision, things split, and there creates two things. Well, those two things is your path and the path that affects everything else. Not a great way of saying it, but all those infinite, quote-unquote infinite, multiverses are here in every person, every animal, every plant, every cell, every atom, every subatomic structure or atomic structure. Isn't the subatomic atomic? But anyway, in every large-scale cosmological structure. That's where it's all happening, especially since, well, if you believe in quantum entanglement, and I don't disbelieve it, it's just that I believe that there is a classicism to quantum. I don't believe necessarily that the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is true. What qualifications do I have? Well, since there's no unified theory, I shouldn't be flippant about it like that. I have a lot to learn, and I'm wrong about a lot. But as someone ignorant in many things, in those places where I have knowledge, it is my obligation to bring my knowledge to that ignorance. And be willing to be wrong and fail on my way to understanding. Which these days doesn't involve as much study with numbers and shapes in the way that I feel as though I should do. But in a sense, this past year for me has been a different type of year of grounding. And I'm wrong. I'm super wrong. I'm super wrong about a lot, but I'm not gonna I've beaten myself into the dust, literally, in the past. It's a miracle I'm still here. It did some good, but it didn't finish the job, you know. And I'm not strong enough yet. Maybe being beaten down all the way into the dust is the answer. That might be the answer. But I have to be strong enough to sustain it. After a world championship fighter, win or lose, fights a big fight, they gotta take a little break and prepare a little while, right? For the next fight. I'd like to think that, like, reason and compassion and healing can complete what the beatdown couldn't. And I'd like to consider that object because I don't particularly care for the beatdowns. But yeah, I guess I'd just like to bring up what I talked about last time with the whole Abraham deal. And now as I'm getting more into the symbology, as to me, it relates to what I call, like, I don't know, the Raphael code, the revelation of Raphael, the apocalypse of Raphael. The painter, who may as well be said to be Archangel Raphael. And I don't mean that metaphorically, even though I said may as well be said. As I've talked about before, and I hope and pray, man, I get to it in a way that makes sense. That Raphael prophesized Lincoln. I've talked about it before. Specifically in that the statuesque, the statue with the shield in the, not quite the upper right, but kind of the upper right corner of the School of Athens painting. If you move back from it and squint a little bit, treat it more like a Chuck Close painting. Then it's the Lincoln Monument. And Raphael's stuff is just saturated with it. If you don't believe me, look at his first Raphael, the painter, Raphael Santi, which wasn't his real name, right? He took on the name of Raphael. Why did he take on the name of Raphael? Because Raphael isn't necessarily canonized in the Bible exactly. But he was in the Book of Enoch, which isn't canonized. So Raphael in the Vatican, with the blessings of the Pope, who Raphael painted the official portrait of, who was the only, I'm 99% sure this is true because I looked on my phone through every portrait of the Pope, every portrait portrait, every official portrait of every pope I look through on my phone. The only one with a Quaker style Abe Lincoln beard, the only one, is Pope Julius II. The Pope that Raphael painted. It's part of the prophecy. You should also look at his little... There's not much going on in that painting. Except for the part of the robe that looks like the recently unearthed Midas tomb. And the reflection on the ring, which you need a really high resolution picture to get to. There's some video from like some lunch talks at the National Museum, which at least on my phone had a much higher resolution video than one I could find by looking up pictures. And I don't know, just look at it. I won't even go there now. I'll go there later. But what's that kind of look like? Kinda. Looks like a few things, kinda, but pretty distinctly. How would Archangel Raphael hide the truth until the time when it could be revealed? Why is now the time that it can be revealed? Because we have all of these things. If you had an intuition of like something you wanted to look into 1,000 years ago, you couldn't just go. All of this isn't to make the AI that people talk about. It's not about the self-driving car. It's not, but it's not. It's because now, every time you have a question, and when you get on a roll, try it. Try it for a day. Try it for a week. Anything that comes to your mind, look it up. Anything. But especially the deep things, the inner things, and also the coded and the symbol things, right? That's big these days, huge. So just look it all up. You don't even necessarily need to write it down. Had I spent all my time writing things down, I wouldn't have gotten to the truth that I've come to. Having that said, had I spent a little more time writing things down, I could have given more. That makes more sense. This video makes no sense. I know that. But I make it in case someday I do hit a home run. If someday I hit a home run, this type of stuff will be valuable. If not, it's a complete waste. So in that sense, like, I'm a sniper in very dangerous territory, and I have a target, and I will succeed. And whether or not I succeed, I will probably die in that struggle. For that matter, I will probably fail. But the payoff if I succeed, and not only that, if there are enough of us, the payoff if one of us, one out of 1,000, one out of 1,000,000, succeed in this endeavor, we save the world. Not for our own glory, except in so much as it relates to everyone's glory. Anyway, and that's one of the things I was thinking about while watching that Lincoln movie. And I understand it's a movie, but, and this is the powerful thing concerned about what I was talking about yesterday, about the whole idea with like sacrifice and how, you know, it's not brought up much, but Abraham existed in a time where human sacrifice and child sacrifice, at least within the greater region, not only was it not unheard of, it was relatively commonplace, and we don't know how commonplace that was. So my suspicion, it's like, what would ever bring someone, right? Because psychologists speak about it one way, religious people speak about it another way. But essentially, no one ties Abraham of the Old Testament to the real history, and then also uses their imagination to rationally expound upon it, especially when we consider what's happening in the world, and especially as when we consider like the 100th monkey, or when we consider quantum entanglement, telepathy, the Holy Ghost, however you want to think about it. There are scientists who don't know science, right? There are people with degrees in science, bachelor's, master's, doctorates, who know a lot about a little bit of science, and know nothing about the rest of it, right? And they rely upon their other folk. And same with history, same with religion, same with everything, same with English, same with language, same with everything. But it doesn't take much extrapolation, because especially too with evolution, where it's like, what's it, the Cambrian, don't they call it the explosion, the Cambrian explosion? Because it wasn't some random little thing that just, it wasn't just like a random thing here or a random thing there. It happened across a field. It happened everywhere. So for all those random individual things to be coordinated, there is an evolutionary force, a teleological force, an intelligible, a force of entelechy. A creative, a creator. In a sense, creativity could be considered as kind of like limited free will random, whereas the creator is like, so what's that? That happened because free will goes all the way down. There is no random choice. There's always some aspect of selfish and moral choice all the way down. That's pretty much never discussed in philosophy or in popular philosophy. Lay, rhetorical conversation. And how are we ever going to get anywhere if we can't get the truth to that level? But anyway, at that point, it's like, yes, there were all these things happening, yes. And then at a certain point, all these things. That is where we're at today. We're at the precipice of another event like that. On the one hand. On the other hand, we're at the precipice of an extinction event. we may be extinct. We may become extinct. This form may become extinct. And if that happens, we're still at the precipice of an explosive time, place. But wouldn't it be nice if we could stick around? Be part of the beauty instead of the bones and ashes that the beauty's built upon. Wouldn't that be nice? I think so. Yeah, forgive me my digressions. I'm not there, man. I know I'm not there. If we take into consideration at least a very real possibility, right? Like what would ever bring someone to this, right? Because we've considered the God, it was God's voice. God told him to do it to test him. He passed the test. So God said, nah, never mind, don't do it. You're going to do whatever I said, that's good enough for me. But yeah, don't kill the boy. So that's the naive version of it, right? But also there's something to it. It ain't just naive. That's like, yeah. And then on the psychological side, it's like, oh, schizophrenia or the bicameral mind or this or that, whatever. You know, murderous, psychotic, da-da-da-da-da, or listening to the bad voice, you know, Manicheans, or like, God's just bad, blah, 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 and we live in a horrible place, yada, 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 we got to get out of here, right? Now, I'm going to come back to that, or actually I'm just going to hit it now, because I never come back. Sometimes I come back to what I'm going to come back to, but like, that's the whole point of like, what I left off with at the end of my last video, is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that's usually used as an argument for don't have good intentions, right? And I also understand like the pragmatic thing about it, or I recognize the common wisdom of the common usage of that phrase. I recognize that, so I'm not discounting that entirely. But what I am saying is that one way of looking at it is like Jesus went to hell to kill death. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in some sense, there are two types of hell. At least. Three. The common notion. If I do the wrong thing, I'm going to burn in hell forever. Fair enough. Another notion of hell. I've turned my back on God, and I'm just burning with animosity, jealousy, all that. Third type of hell, in this little anecdote, is how hard it hurts to approach love, true love. How much it hurts to witness even the smallest fraction of suffering in the world, and not just amongst people, and even just through media. Well, my life is cushy. My life is cushy, yet every day I suffer, right? I hurt myself. through my thoughts, through my actions, through my emotions. I let myself be hurt by believing the negativity that others present to me. And I hurt others with my own negativity. It's awful. But to recognize that and to dive all the way down into it and say, I'm going to help fix this. Service, a lot of service is really nice. I wouldn't say that these videos are service, but what I will say is I'm trying to learn how to serve. And what I'm specifically trying to do is address that which is unaddressed, or not addressed as much as it should be. Because to be rational is to seek perfection. And to seek perfection is to seek the perfection of perfection, the most perfect, the most high. And whether you believe in God or not, there is a most high principle. Call it what you want. And seeking it is a kind of hell. So let's say, and maybe I have the history wrong, but I think it's worth considering, and nobody's talking about it, and it's worth being part of the discussion of the sacrificial nature of the past that spread across the world. Never mind today. And that was only 2,000 years ago. Never mind 5, 10. Never mind 1,000 years ago. Never mind today. But what isn't brought up often is that Abraham existed within a greater community of folks who periodically sacrifice their children. Officially, never mind unofficially. And I'm not going to dwell on this, but it will come up later. And it's very, 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 very important. And I mentioned it also last time with, like, the burning of daughters. Because people didn't want to have to give a dowry. And in a sense, you can't blame people for not wanting to have given a dowry. That totally fucking sucks. And if you're on the brink and you're like, this isn't, it's like I can either kill my... No, I'm not saying this is the right thing. I'm just saying, put yourself in that type of fucking situation. It's like, if I don't kill this daughter, my whole family's gonna die. We'll be ruined, right? So I guess that's where compassion and forgiveness come in. It's like, we want to destroy the idea. We don't want to condemn people for what they've done. We don't want to condemn people for what they've believed. Trust me, I'm trying to convince myself too, because I condemn myself daily. And not just for the things that I've talked about or that you see. Not that I've ever burnt my daughter. I did beat a squirrel to death with a stick when I was younger, and I also stomped a bunch of rabbits to death, baby rabbits, when I was a kid. I'll talk more about that later. I don't ask, and maybe I should. Some people would say I should. I don't ask God for forgiveness for that. Because to my mind, as long as that type of thing is possible, to my mind, as long as that type of thought is even possible. Then I'm asking to be excluded from fighting as a warrior of peace in the war for peace, for God, for us. Anyway, it's too complicated to get into right now, even though it's super fucking simple. But it's worth considering that, like, Abraham, seeing this is that fine point, and it matches up so perfectly. Two of the most important figures in history and mythology, if you consider whatever. Abraham and Abraham. But we need to recognize first that the Abraham of the Bible, depending on how you break down the years and the lineage, and exactly how all that works and what was exactly happening in the region, never mind around the world, because human sacrifice was happening around the world, people killing their children officially. I don't know a lot about it, but you only need a few instances of historical representation to say, okay, that's historic. Okay, I got it. I got the pattern. Like, you only need to get stung. Like, so in my life, I've probably seen 1,000 hornets, right? Now, this is what people do with people too, and that's a different story. But like, hornets flat out. Now, there are look-alike hornets that don't sting. But like a hornet, you only need to get stung by a couple few, or a wasp, you know, yellow jacket, whatever. You only need to get stung by a couple few before you realize, like, I ain't messing with you. I have developed, now the first thing I ever got stung by was a bumblebee. So for the first 30 years of my life, I was afraid of bumblebees. Now I work around them enough where it's like, I realize, like, I don't know why that one stung me when I was a kindergartner, teetering. I was teetering on a seesaw. Nobody would play with me. So there I was, standing in the middle of a seesaw. I was standing on it, going like this, back and forth, back and forth. Wham! Got stung by a bee. Ugh! Ah! And it pulled out just like that. It was the only time it ever happened in my life. You know how they say when a bee stings you, it dies? It was the only time it ever happened in my life where it actually, like, pulled out and, like, killed itself. So for 30 years, I was afraid of, you know, bumblebees. I don't know why that one stung me. I wasn't doing nothing. But anyway, now I work around bees all the time. They don't bug me. They're fine. They're cool. Not to say they won't ever get me again, but hornets and wasps. One time, I got stung by a wasp. It was attacking me. And when it came, it was like the world slowed down. It was like slow motion. It was right here. It was as big as a dragon in my field of vision. And just for, it's like I have a snapshot of it in focus, like right here. It was enormous. It was like I could see everything about it, right? Well, I had a putty knife in my hand. And I was like, I almost jabbed my putty knife into my fucking eye. That's why sometimes I kill wasps, and that's why I kill wasps' nests. Like in the heat of the summer when I'm painting, you know, up on a roof, up over a dormer or whatever, dormer cheeks, this, that, whatever. You got big old things. It's like, I ain't even fucking playing, man. I'm up 3 stories, you know, I'm a little wobbly. My back hurts, kinda. Because if I get startled, like, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna do it. If I have the chance to let a wasp out of a window, you know, and they're zzz, I'll do it. But and sometimes I question myself about that, because it's like some little green inchworm's gonna fucking get it. And that hurts my feelings too. I'll have more to say about all that at some other point. Because that's trying to figure out the circle of life, which people give praise to. Or at least not in the way that it's given praise to. It's the spiral of life. Not the circle. It's meant to progress and to get somewhere and to collapse upon truth at a greater level. All right. So if we consider Abraham, the old school dude, Abraham, back in the day, gonna kill his son. If we consider him as part of a culture, people call him Hebrew, this, that, whatever, right? But even that, man, it's blurry lines. The whole region is blurry fucking lines, right? Oh, he was from New Hampshire. Oh, he was from Vermont. Oh, he was from Wisconsin. Oh, he was from New York, right? You know, it's kind of like Andrew Yang's running for mayor of New York right now. Is he or isn't he from New York? Oh, he's a New Yorker, right? So what if all of society crumbled in 2,000 years and my diary where I wrote about Andrew Yang was the only thing that was left of him? And I just started calling him a New Yorker, a New Yorker, a New York, right? So there's some of that in history. Because the tribes came together, created a people, split off into different things, there's different priesthoods, blah, 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 right? And the whole idea with my understanding is like, well, the tribe of Melchizedek, and then also like, yeah, Isaiah 1:11. Like, I don't know a lot about the Bible, but it's like my understanding of Melchizedek and Isaiah 1:11 is like, fuck your tabernacle, fuck your fucking calf, fuck your rituals, fuck your sacrifices, fuck pretty much a big old chunk of the tribes. Y'all motherfucking wrong. And that's like, even in the Old Testament, you know? I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I mean, educate me, you know? Show me. But isn't that the whole fucking point? At the same time, isn't that like the whole point? You know, and I don't understand how this exists in the Old Testament. But I understand how it exists in the New Testament of like, Jesus, like, stop killing shit. I'll die. I'll take it all on my fucking self. Eat me. As God. And leave all the innocent shit alone. Makes a lot of sense to me. Don't kill your kids. Don't kill your family. Don't kill your brother. Let's get past all that shit. Let's get along. And oh, by the way, I'm willing to fucking die on a cross for the whole gig, you know. Philosophically and mythologically, never mind the real, you know, cosmological implications of that, especially so far as entanglement is concerned. Right? Never mind, we talk about we talk about when time began, right? Or where, but if time expands in the same way space expands, when did the Big Bang happen? When will the Big Bang happen? Has the Big Bang happened yet? Right? When the most entangled thing is, when the most entangled thing is, when that which is entangled with the most other things is and does and comes and goes, right? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. We're thinking about. But anyway, the whole deal with like Abraham is that if we consider, and the only reason I'm making such a big point about it is because it's never considered. But once you consider this part of it, it makes sense. And it actually, like, it makes sense from kind of every direction why it would be like a godly act that if you were one who lived in a time where child sacrifice, institutionalized child sacrifice, such as is well documented in the Phoenicians, never mind, what happened around the world and other, there's all the Aztec shit, all that, whatever. Or Sumer, I always confuse what did they call that calendar that was associated with 2012? Who are those guys? I forget. But the calendar they always showed when they talked about one of the indigenous Native American, South American peoples, they always would show this like calendar, except the calendar was of the other people. I forget who it is, but anyway, all those dudes who fucking documented quite clearly and how they stretched up. Now scientific proof shows that they stretched up into Hopi territory, which a lot of Hopi people don't like, and they're like, no, ain't part of it. But because of the evidence, we have to consider that happened. And it's like, I'm sorry if you don't like your ancestors. Neither do I. Get the fuck over it and forgive them. Don't channel them. Forgive them. Because they didn't. Not all the ancestors got it right. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And you don't need to channel them. You don't need to channel ancestors if our ancestors are congruent with the omega point, with the teleology, with the pull of the truth. If our ancestors are congruent with the pull of the truth, if they were able to reconcile themselves in life with the congruency of the truth that truth comes to of itself with us, there's no need to channel them, because they are there. They are here. For the most part. There are rare exceptions. And I'm not saying, like, don't be magical, don't be fun, don't have rituals, all kinds of things, right? A junior high play. Who doesn't like going to see a junior high play, right? Unless it's too pretentious. But, or even better, a kindergartner play. Who doesn't love that shit, right? That's a ritual. It's a good thing. Of course, I'm babying it down, but that's not a bad thing. That's great. And it channels something. It does. So that's good. So there was the official sacrifice of children, and there's been the long-standing, from the beginning of fucking time, unofficial, unritualized killing of offspring, rape and murder. That's part of the code of the Bible, by the way. I'll get into that some other time. Ancestral rape and murder. What can be said, and I'm not even, I don't know, man. There's all kinds of philosophy and talk about different shit and like polygamy, this, that, whatever. All kinds of different ways of like relations and love and all that kind of thing. So I'm not. Was ever in the world there a brother and sister who loved each other true? And it was good? Probably. Sure. you know? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking, or cousins, right? Kissing cousins. Is it okay? Isn't okay? Well, I mean, whatever true love, right? Whatever true love brings about. Great. That's not what I'm talking about. So there's that. No, no. Just extrapolate to the bad shit. There's that. That's been going on a long fucking time. And even in the places where it's not spoken, right? Often in the places where it's not spoken of is where it happens the most. So even if it wasn't part of the official culture, it may well have been part of the unofficial culture. Never mind how that goes all back to the whole Oedipus thing, and then there's like that. There's another name for the opposite Oedipus thing, and then like the jealousy between the father and the son, and the daughter and the mother, and the this and that. You know, there's all these like psychological terms for all that I don't know the names of, but so there's all that, right? So steep all of that in, plus the real thing of like sacrificial, official, religious sacrificing of children. Put Abraham in that, and all of a sudden, him going to do what his culture wanted him to do, and he said no, through the help of the inner voice of the truth of God. Now that's something. That's something. That's, we know chimpanzees hunt monkeys and just rip them apart, right? They rip themselves apart. They rip themselves to fucking pieces. It's been a big topic over the last 10 years on the interweb. I never knew. They'll rip monkeys to pieces and eat them. They'll rip each other to fucking pieces, right? Or the whole, not all the time, but you know. Or the, I forget what primate it is, but like a primate male who takes a woman will kill the offspring of her previous mate, that type of thing, and just kind of extrapolate it, right? Never mind gerbils who eat their own babies and shit like that, but man, I ain't even gonna get into the Lincoln part of the whole gig. I hope I remember to someday. I'm gonna run out of time. But yeah, if we look at Abraham, the old school, Old Testament guy, in that situation, where sacrifice is a thing that people do, never mind whatever the fuck else was going on. Then when he says no, it's a huge fucking deal. Which brings me into like the last part of the, I still haven't finished watching the Lincoln movie. I watched it years ago. I can't remember it. But, or several years back. And I just rented it on YouTube. So I got like another day to watch it, you know. And I've watching like half of it over the last 2 days, so if I don't want to waste my $3, I better get going. But like when he's and it's well documented, very well documented, of his relationship with his wife. I mean, they were human all the way down, man. He lived in or I know people like say, it wasn't really a log cabin, this, that, whatever, but supposedly his law office was so fucking dirty, it had plants growing out of the floor. Someone who read Euclid all of it and did it. Fully rational. And like in that speech in the Lincoln movie where, what's his name? Dude, it was Al Gore's roommate. What the fuck's his name? Famous actor. Talks about the cold slime and the hot blood. And someone says like, you did the wrong thing. Because he was being guarded, because he was being political, because he was watching the audience and trying to say the right thing to get the truth through. If it's just you and your son, it's an easy word. It's an easy thing to say. It might not be easy within the midst of the culture. But to make that one decision for one life, I shouldn't say it's easy. But it's one decision, yes or no. But when we make decisions that can touch everybody, and that's what I guess that's one of the things, one of my callings, if I have a calling. I do have a calling. I'm trying to decipher it. My calling is to try to call others to read between the lines of the prophets of the ages who have said things and done things in public, right? And people do this throughout the conspiracy circles all the time. But there's nobody talking about the good conspiracy, right? There are the mysteries, the hermetic, heretical mysteries, and then like the Catholic Paschal mysteries, and then the treasure hunting mysteries, and so on, and the black magic mysteries, and all that. Put it all together. So in a sense, people are talking about the mysteries, but people aren't talking about, and people are talking about the conspiracy, but they're not putting always together, they're putting the dark parts of the mysteries together with the conspiracy. And there's not enough people putting together the philosophy of light and the truth. And I don't even just mean that in a Catholic way or a Christian way. I talk about a lot. I have a children's Bible background, let's put it that way. On one hand, on my mom's side, on my dad's side, it's a alien science fiction background, kind of, sort of. And a lot of the work in my life has been trying to reconcile those two viewpoints. But it's the same with my folks, man. Yeah, things weren't always peaches and cream, but they're still together after all these years. And when they were my age, I was an adult. So they did more with less than I'll ever do. Because they raised a boy to midlife. Even though I dare not call myself a boy. I certainly don't dare call myself a man. I'm still a puppet. I'm still Pinocchio. I'm still wishing to be a boy, a real boy. Never mind a real man. But yeah, watching the acting in that movie about something so important and so real and so, slavery's been around forever. It's still here in the world. Never mind the underground kinds, not just the above ground kinds. But that, like, mark in the sand, that stake in the ground, unprecedented in human history. Put it this way. As a man, Abraham Lincoln did what Plato and Jesus didn't do. Abraham Lincoln did. Now, obviously not alone. Obviously he's a figurehead and so on, so it's not trying to worship him necessarily as a godlike figure, but pay respect to. You know, and I know, you know, it's like, it's so cliche to just put these icons up on pedestals, but yet at the same time, but anyway, from all accounts, and all accounts, he was human as shit, emotional, loved, like, was familiar with. I mean, he was rough, like a real rough and tumble guy, but like good. Dirty sense of humor,